When the lawyer read my parents' will, I felt the floor drop beneath me. Caleb Hale receives the Manhattan mansion and remaining financial assets. Ethan Hale inherits a cabin in Alaska. That was it. 2 sentences. 2 lives decided. My younger brother Caleb smiled like the world had just confirmed what he always believed, that he was destined for greatness, and I was just a shadow standing too close to his light. The lawyer's voice faded. The papers blurred. My mother's name, my father's, their signatures, their goodbye, and me, sitting there, numb, trying not to break. Outside that office, Caleb clapped me on the shoulder. "Guess Dad always believed in me," he said. "You'll figure something out, though. Maybe that shack has potential." He walked away laughing. That night, when I told my fiancée Rachel, she didn't laugh. She exploded. "A cabin? Are you kidding me? Caleb gets a mansion, and you get a pile of rotten wood? You really thought you'd amount to something?" I tried to explain. "It's not about money." "Oh, please," she cut me off. "You've been saying that for years, Ethan. I'm done pretending I don't see what everyone else does." She threw her engagement ring on the table so hard it bounced. "You'll never be anything." When the door slammed, I stood there staring at that ring glinting on the wood. My parents were gone. My brother had everything. The woman I loved had left. And me? I had a one-way ticket to nowhere. But grief has a strange way of stripping you down until all that's left is the truth. And the truth was, I couldn't keep living as the man everyone thought I was. 2 weeks later, I packed a bag and boarded a plane to Alaska. The sky was endless gray. The air bit through my coat like knives. A driver dropped me at the end of an icy road, pointed toward the woods, and said, "That's as far as I go. Your cabin's about a mile that way." Every step through the snow echoed like a question I didn't want to answer. When I finally saw it, I almost laughed. The porch sagged. The windows were broken. The roof was half collapsed. It looked like something time had forgotten. Inside was worse. Mold, rot, dust, silence. I ran my hand across the wall. The wood flaked like ashes. "This," I whispered, "is what they thought I was worth." I dropped my bag, sat on the cold floor, and stared at the empty space where a fire might have been. For the first time in years, I cried not out of sadness but anger. Anger that I had spent my whole life trying to be seen, trying to matter. That night, as wind howled through the cracks and snow whispered against the walls, I realized something. There was no one left to save me. If I was ever going to change my story, it had to start here, in this forgotten place. Morning came gray and heavy. My breath turned to clouds in the freezing air. I should have left, sold the land, gone back to New York. But something kept me there, a quiet defiance, maybe even curiosity. If this was the only thing my parents had left me, I needed to understand why. So I started working, clearing debris, fixing windows, sweeping years of dust and decay. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like the cabin groaning awake after years of silence. Hours passed, and anger became fuel. Each nail I hammered was a protest against every insult I'd ever heard, from my father's cold words to Rachel's final scream. By evening, my body ached, but I wasn't ready to stop. Something in me said there was more here, something buried. Then, as I pulled an old rug from the floor, I saw it. A faint iron ring embedded in the wood. A hidden handle. I froze. My heart pounded. I grabbed it and pulled. The wood groaned, hinges cracked, and a square panel lifted, revealing a dark hole beneath the cabin. A cellar. A secret space no one had told me about. The air that rose from it was cold and damp, like earth untouched for decades. My flashlight beam cut through the dark, catching the edge of wooden steps descending below. I hesitated, half afraid, half desperate, then went down. Each step creaked under my weight until I reached the bottom. The flashlight shook in my hand as I swept it across the room. Crates, dozens of them, stacked, sealed, forgotten. In the corner, a large trunk sat covered in dust. I pried open the first crate. The wood splintered and light caught something inside. Gold, coins, stacks of them. Old, heavy, shining through years of grime. I unwrapped a bundle of cloth. Necklaces, brooches, rings, gems I couldn't name. For a long moment, I couldn't move. My parents hadn't left me a shack. They'd left me a secret. I opened another crate, silver, jewelry, antique watches. Then another, documents, maps, land deeds, all signed with my family's name. My hands trembled. My heart raced so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Why me?" I whispered. "Why hide this here?" In the trunk, beneath the jewelry, I found ledgers, thick, leather-bound, brittle with age. The ink had faded, but the numbers were unmistakable. Mining rights, land ownership, resource claims. The total value? I couldn't even estimate. But it wasn't small. It was massive. Tens of millions, maybe more. I sat there on the cellar floor, surrounded by gold and silence, and felt something inside me crack open. My parents hadn't rejected me. They had trusted me. All those years I thought I wasn't good enough, that Caleb was the chosen one. Maybe they'd seen something in me I couldn't see in myself. And then I found the envelope, tucked between the ledger pages. My name written in my mother's handwriting. I opened it with shaking hands. "Ethan, if you're reading this, it means your father and I are gone. What we've left you is not punishment. It is trust." Caleb was bold, but reckless. "You are patient. You think before you act. That's why this belongs to you. Protect it, grow it, and forgive us for the way it may have seemed. We love you, always." The words blurred through my tears. For years I believed my parents thought I was weak. But they'd seen something different, something deeper. The truth was overwhelming, but clear. They hadn't chosen Caleb. They had chosen me. I stayed up all night reading that letter again and again until the sun rose through the broken window. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. I felt chosen. I spent the next few days cataloging everything. Gold, documents, jewelry. I wrote it all down carefully, hiding it back under the floor when I was done. Then I repaired the cabin, fixed the roof, patched the walls, built a fire that finally stayed lit. That cabin stopped feeling like a punishment. It became my proof that patience, quiet strength, and endurance were worth something. But word travels fast, especially in families that gossip. A week later, Caleb called. "Hey, big brother," he said smugly. "How's life in your little shack? Ready to admit you got the short end of the deal?" I wanted to tell him the truth, that beneath my floor sat more wealth than he could imagine. But I didn't. Instead, I said, "I'm managing." He laughed. "Sure you are. Enjoy the wilderness." He hung up, and for the first time I didn't feel the need to prove him wrong. I already knew the truth. Then Rachel texted, "Ethan, I've been thinking. Maybe I overreacted. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a long minute, then deleted the message. She didn't miss me. She missed the idea of what I might have become. I wasn't going to let anyone take this from me. Not the gold, not the peace I'd found. Weeks passed. The silence of Alaska no longer felt empty, felt alive. Each night, I sat by the fire reading through the ledgers, learning the history my family had buried. My grandfather, Elias Hale, had built an empire of land rights and investments, one that had been quietly passed down to my parents and now to me. The real inheritance wasn't just money. It was responsibility. It wasn't about spending it. It was about protecting it and proving that their trust hadn't been misplaced. When I finally flew back to New York, I didn't go to Caleb's mansion. I didn't call Rachel. I rented a small apartment and started planning. Quietly, patiently, the way my parents knew I would. I began working with historians, lawyers, and consultants under a different name. Slowly, I started turning those old deeds and rights into something living again. Investments, partnerships, land preservation. No one knew. No one needed to. The victory was silent, and that made it stronger. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that first moment I saw the cabin, how I thought it was the cruelest joke life could play. Now I know better. It wasn't a rejection. It was a test. That cabin broke me down, but it also rebuilt me. Beneath those floorboards wasn't just treasure. It was truth. My parents hadn't abandoned me. They had trusted me to become the kind of man who could handle what they couldn't leave to anyone else. And I did. So if you're listening to this, and you've ever felt forgotten or underestimated, remember this. Sometimes what looks like rejection is actually trust in disguise. Sometimes the broken places in your life are hiding your greatest treasures. I went to Alaska feeling worthless. I left knowing I was chosen, not by chance, but by character. And if you ever find yourself standing before your own rotting cabin, don't turn away too soon, because beneath it, there might just be the truth that changes everything.